I'm Robert Curtis. I'm the head instructor of the Distance Calculus program. In this video, I'm going to discuss how our courses work. This is a common question that many students have when they're looking around for an online or classroom-based calculus course. And so I want to describe how our courses are different than those other offerings. A term that's become popular in the last couple of years is the idea of a flipped classroom. You may have heard this term, and let me describe what it means. In a traditional course, you go to the classroom and you hear a lecture, and then you go home and you do your homework at home. And the idea is, in the classroom, the teacher will present information to you, and then that will enable you to go home and do your homework by yourself. Unfortunately, in math, as is all too common the case, you may sit through this lecture, you get home, and the homework doesn't make any sense, which is the common way of describing math homework. It doesn't make any sense. I'm confused. You probably have heard yourself say many, many times, because there is a great disconnect between these two things. You are passively taking in knowledge during a lecture, and then you're being actively asked to be an active learner over here on your homework, but you're at home and by yourself. And oftentimes that just doesn't work. There are many schools who are turning this around into a flipped classroom, where in the classroom you do homework in the classroom, and when you go home you may spend your homework time watching videos, usually lectures, and I'll just put here video lectures, instead of doing homework at home. This really works out well. A lot of charter high schools are moving to this model, because then when you start to actively learn doing your homework, then you have resources in the classroom to be able to ask questions. And the video lectures, I find video lectures to be better than live lectures. Video lectures, you can watch a piece of the video lecture again. If you didn't understand something, you can move the little thumb back on the video player and watch it again. If the video lecture seems like it's just talking on and on and on for 10 minutes about something you already understand, you can fast forward through that and skip over a part that isn't helping you at the time. If you need to go back over the video lecture to help you with the homework, you can skim through and say, oh yeah, he talked about this part right there. Yeah, okay, 10 minutes and 28 seconds, that's going to help me. And you can go back over those video lectures in a very powerful way. You can't do that with a live teacher. A live teacher, you show up for your hour lecture and you listen to that lecture exactly as it's presented, and there's no stopping, there's no going back. A live lecture has its positives. However, I think the more effective way of presenting lecture-type material is in video format. So we've been doing videos way before flipped classrooms came into vogue, and our distance calculus courses are largely based on the idea of a flipped classroom. So let me just describe how that works with a little drawing. So each course has a set of assignments. In most of the courses, and the average number of assignments per course is about 100. About 100. Some courses, like business calculus, have fewer assignments. Some courses that are longer, like Calculus 2, have more assignments. But 100 is about the average. So let's just pretend that we have assignment 1. What would be in assignment 1 in a typical course? Well, there's always 2 parts to each assignment. There's learning and there's doing. The learning part has usually the videos. There might be 1 video in the learning part. There might be 5 videos. There might be 10 videos. It depends. It changes based on the assignments and the curriculum. There may be some notebooks, as I call them, NBs, notebooks. These are like Microsoft Word files, but they don't work with Microsoft Word. They work with our math software, either Live Math or the higher courses use the more powerful Mathematica. And these notebooks have text and graphs and calculations and equations and all kinds of stuff, and then you do math in them, and you'll see how that works. That's what a number of these videos are really all about, is actually watching me do stuff in the math software. And you learn how to use the math software at the same time as learning the topics from your course, the math topics. There might also be some PDFs, which might be some hand calculations. About 15% of the course is based on hand calculations. You need to be literate in certain hand calculations in calculus. However, it's not the majority of the course. It's only about 15%. The majority of the course operates inside of the math software programs, either Live Math or Mathematica. And the doing part will also have usually notebooks and sometimes videos that you will make. And sometimes, well, not PDFs, but you can make PDFs, but usually JPEGs, photos of work that you may do on paper. Some assignments have paper parts, and you'll do that work on paper, and then you'll take your cell phone out and take a picture of it and send us that picture. So each assignment has these parts, and the learning part will just stay here, and that's your resource part. And the doing part is the work that you will actually turn in to us, to the instructors. And you will have a main mentor but there are multiple instructors in our program, and so some instructors, you will have one main mentor who will most of the time grade your work, but some of the other instructors may jump in and help, especially when your main mentor is being overwhelmed with work from other students. If they're falling behind, then the other instructors try to jump in and help and try to compensate. So you'll be turning in certain notebooks. Sometimes you'll be making videos, and sometimes you'll be handing in a JPEG into the instructors. And then how does that work? Well, I'm going to erase this because I need some more space here to kind of show you what's going to happen. So here's the notebooks. Let's say you had one notebook and two notebooks. So you have two notebooks in assignment 1, and you hand them in to the instructors. You upload them, which is very familiar to most people using the internet now, is that you'll hand these in, and then the instructor is going to grade them. Now, these are all human, right? Our program is completely based on humans in terms of the interaction. So this is not an automated thing where you hand it in and it's graded in 2 seconds and back it comes. It's not multiple choice. These are all of the work is graded by humans, and so when you hand it in, you might get it back tomorrow, or maybe the next day, or ooh, it might be a busy weekend, so it might not be until the day after. We try to get things back the day after. We try our best, but sometimes it takes 2 days. Sometimes it takes 3 days. And if we're really busy, then sometimes it takes 3 or 4 days. It's just the way that the course ebbs and flows. It turns out the busiest week for distance calculus turns out to be the week between Christmas and New Year's. Why? Because most people have that off for some reason, from work, from school, their kids are doing something, they have relatives over watching their kids, I don't know, but that week is always the busiest week for distance calculus. And it just gets crazy. So sometimes it gets crazy. Anyway, you hand in the notebook, and then a day or 2 or 3, that notebook gets returned. The instructor makes some comments in it. Maybe you got it perfect. Maybe you didn't get it perfect. You need more work. There's only 2 grades possible. There is in progress or complete. If it's in progress, if your notebook gets handed back for in progress, then you're being asked to work on it some more and then turn it back in for regrading. This is called recursive grading. Recursive grading. And these are the only 2 grades possible on any assignment. It's either in progress or it's complete. And this goes along with the mastery learning that we employ in distance calculus, that you work on the assignment until it is complete, until you have it 100% correct. Now, you may be asking, well, how do grades work? I made another video about grades, and I invite you to go look at that video on grades. But in any case, let's just concentrate on the process that the instructor hands it back for. Perhaps it may say in progress. You need to work on, the 5th problem some more. You didn't get the calculation correct. The graph wasn't right. I think you can answer it a little bit better, etc., etc. You'll get comments back, and then you will turn that notebook back in again. When will you turn it back in? Well, maybe you turn it back in tomorrow. Maybe you turn it back in next week. Maybe you turn it back in next month. It's okay. All of our courses are asynchronous. Asynchronous means it is not synchronous. So you can turn him back in, you can turn your homework back in as you're able to do it. And then the instructor will hand it back, and it'll either still be in progress or it'll be marked complete. Oh, well, all right, that's the first assignment. How many times can that assignment, those files, go back and forth? Well, at first it's usually once or twice or 3 times. As you get better at the course, then usually it's just once, maybe twice sometimes. If you're struggling in the course, then it can go 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. It can go back and forth quite a lot. Usually when we get to 10 times, we start to say, okay, maybe we'll just leave that assignment alone and we'll go to the next one, but we're going to have to go slow because you're struggling. It's not unusual, and some students do have particular assignments that they just find to be difficult, and that's okay. If it's a pattern of difficult assignments, then of course, more intervention is required. So, one question you might be asking right now is, so I have to sit here on assignment 1 and just do it back and forth until I get it right before I go to the next assignment? No. This is almost like a ping pong match. You will complete the work for assignment 1 and hand it in. And then you will go work on assignment 2. You do not need to get assignment 1 back to go forward and work on assignment 2. You will work on assignment 2. Assignment 2 may have its own set of videos, its own set of PDFs. its own notebooks to go through. You go and you work on assignment number 2 and you hand that in. Meanwhile, while you've been working on assignment number 2, assignment number 1 flew back at you. And the instructor graded it and said, oh, that's in progress. You need to work on that a little bit more. Oh, okay. Well, in the meantime, you turned in assignment 2 and you jumped forward to assignment 3. And you started working on assignment 3. Oh, okay. So you turned in assignment 3. That's great. Then you jumped back to assignment 1 and you got that in progress back. And so then you turned it back in. And meanwhile, while you were turning that one back in, the instructor returned assignment 2. And assignment 2 was marked in progress, and you needed to do a little more work on that. Oh, okay, so then you jump back to assignment 2, you work on assignment 2, you turn it back in. While you were doing that, the instructor graded assignment 3. Oh, that one was complete. Awesome. So you got assignment 3 done. Bam. Assignment 2, well, maybe assignment 1 went back and forth 3 or 4 times, but it's going to be complete at some point. And then, bam, assignment 1 is done. What should you do now? Yeah, you got it right. Assignment 4, assignment 5, assignment 6, assignment 7. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's crazy, isn't it? Can you imagine this going on in a classroom? Wouldn't that be crazy if you had 30, 40, 50 students in a classroom and they're all turning in different work each day? And you know, the first row turned in assignment 5 and the second row turned in assignment 8, and then some of them got assignment 5 back, and third row turned in assignment 12. It would be crazy. But in our electronic system, this isn't crazy at all. This is exactly the way the course works. The fact that we operate the course asynchronously allows us to do this kind of thing on all of the assignments. You will find that in the beginning assignments, there's a lot more of this going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But by about a third to a halfway through the course, then almost all the notebooks are usually complete on the first go around, because you've got the idea. You understand what is going to be, asked for revision. You know you've got to do this. You've got to do these calculations. You understand how the course works, and you don't need to go back and forth, back and forth. So that usually only occurs during the first third of the course, sometimes the first half. Sometimes on harder assignments. Some of these, you may start working on assignment 2 and then you have a question. You don't understand one of the problems in assignment 2. That's fine. You write your question in the notebook and you hand it in. And then the instructor will take a look at your question and respond to it, give you further hints, maybe post another video for you to watch, a further explanation, etc., etc. Now, all based upon this going back and forth, you may say, well, what if I have a question? Is there any way I can ask that question right away? Yeah, absolutely. That's what chat's for. That's why we have a chat mechanism into the course, that if you're working on assignment 2 and you have a question at 10 o'clock at night on a Tuesday night, and one of the instructors is online, which is very common at that time, then you may jump onto chat and say, hey, I've got a question on assignment number 2. And often the instructor will say, great, put your question in the notebook, hand it in, I'll go look at it right now. And then you're on chat and you're talking and you hand in the notebook, the instructor looks at it, gives you some comments, some feedback, hands it back. You guys talk more on chat. That's the real-time component in case it's needed, if you need help while you are working on the assignment actively. That helps a lot of students. It's very common to do that. And it's kind of like the idea of a flipped classroom, is that you're doing your work. The homework is the main discussion platform for interacting with the instructor, not the lectures. The lectures are kind of like the textbook. The main platform for conversation between the instructor and the student are the assignments, are the homework inside of those assignments. And so it is this recursive grading, going back and forth, getting to 100% completion for mastery learning. That's the cornerstone of our courses. And I hope this clears things up. Any questions you might have had about how our course works? If this seems daunting, don't worry. We've had thousands of students go through this. And even though the beginning of the course sometimes requires a little more patience on the part of the student to kind of get the hang of it, the students do. And I think you'll find that this is a very rewarding way of going through the course, a very intensive way of going through the course, and much more intensive than some of the other ways that calculus is presented in online courses. If you have any further questions, please get on chat with me or write me an email with your questions, and I'll try to answer them while you make your decision about which courses you may wish to enroll in. We'll talk to you later.